I want to educate you on you. I want to empower you in times of adversity, and I want to equip you to heal yourself because you can. Welcome to season 1 of my podcast, Unshrinkable. Hi, I'm Emily Katz. My guest and I are here to help you find what works for you beyond traditional therapy and mainstream meds. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to introduce our incredible guest today, Sal Holden. Sal is a kinesiologist, intuitive holistic life coach, #1 Amazon bestselling author, and speaker. Over the past 14 years, she has empowered thousands of women internationally to overcome burnout, reclaim their health, energy, and joy, and create lives that they love. In our conversation, Sal will share her personal story of experiencing burnout and her passion for helping women navigate this challenge. We'll explore the symptoms of burnout, character traits that can predispose women to it, and Sal will also introduce us to the Byron Katie process for challenging our beliefs and thoughts and suggest practical steps to support our well-being. I'm very excited. Sal's clients have experienced transformative results, such as regaining energy, lifting their mood, reducing fibromyalgia symptoms, and dramatically improving their overall health and self-awareness. Get ready for an enlightening and empowering discussion with Sal Holden. Let's dive in. Sal, thank you for being here. Thank you. Please introduce yourself and specifically how you got here doing what you do.
Thank you so much, Emily. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today, tonight for me, today for you.
You're on opposite sides of the world, by the way.
Totally. And yeah, look, honestly, I think my journey started like a lot of people's journeys start with a fairly big life awakening moment or moments that kind of compound together. Basically in 2008, my marriage broke down and my mum passed away shortly after from terminal cancer. And my girls were aged 6 and 8 years old at the time. And I knew in that moment I needed to radically change who I was and how I was actually showing up. And that was that real line in the moment, like line in the sand moment where it was like, I cannot keep being the person I am. I was angry, grief-stricken, just did not know how to cope. I'm hugely emotional. I have my moon in Cancer and I'm Cancerian in my sun as well.
Moon.
All the feels were going on, and I didn't know how to change. And so it really put me on this path and this trajectory. I'd always been interested in spirituality and open to different ideas. And about 3 or 4 years prior to my divorce and my marriage ending, I'd looked up kinesiology and I'd actually been seeing a kinesiologist myself. And I was like really amazed at the changes that were starting to come through. And from the moment that my marriage ended, I was like, right, that's what I need to do. And so I went off and trained and studied and became a kinesiologist, which was absolutely amazing. I had my own clinic for 6 years. And through that, I really got to understand how our thoughts and the patterns of our thoughts, the patterns of our emotions get expressed through the body and through the state of disease. And so that was just huge in awakening my awareness. And that really kind of took me down the path of life coaching then, and really finding out about how do we actually shift our mindset and our beliefs a lot more, because I could really see that was really the root cause for it all. And that was like 2008, 2010, I started my business, and with so much fear, but like anything, it's like when we're super passionate about it, we've got a big why behind it. And my why was creating freedom for myself and my girls and creating the lifestyle that I wanted. Yeah, came to 2016, I took my business online, and then got to 2020, and there was just so many compounding factors. I'd been pushing myself really hard for many years. I was self-employed as a business owner, had been running my business for 10 years by that time, single mum for 12 years by that time, always looking for the next thing and been working out. I think it was like 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. It was like up-leveling my body. It was like trying to up-level in every area of my life. And I think underneath it, looking back in hindsight now, whilst I was very passionate about my growth, I think a lot of it was very still fear-based, in that it was still trying to prove my worth or my value in some way, shape or form, or try and be enough. And I'd done some work, obviously, over the years on my boundaries, but there was still a lot there that I needed to learn and to really consolidate within myself. And it was still kind of showing up, trying to be what I thought everybody else wanted and expected me to be as well. And basically after all of that chronic stress, and not to mention gym workouts, and then I loaded on myself a 42K walking marathon, which was like 6 hours of walking in training, every weekend on top of everything else, as well as then trying to scale my business at another level, build out a new program. And I had 3 grief events happen in the 1 week. And that was my a really good friend passing away from cancer. It was my relationship, my intimate relationship breaking down, just due to all of the stresses, and me just feeling like I just had nothing left to give anyone. And my youngest daughter also moved out of home that week as well. And we had a great relationship. It wasn't that we were fighting or anything was bad or wrong, but just that whole 3 events just literally just blew my nervous system up. I really felt like I had nothing left in the tank, with all of that on top of already the chronic and the acute stresses there. So that was pretty much where I ended up. And I went to the doctors, as most people do when you go, wow, something is really not okay here. I was barely able to function for 2 hours a day. And I knew exactly what was going on. I knew I was extraordinarily burnt out and nothing left in the tank. Went to the doctors, they ran the standard blood tests. And the thing that broke my heart in that moment was literally the doctor said, no, physically, you're totally fine. And if you're still feeling fatigued, it's probably mental health. And so maybe look at some antidepressants or something. And I just went, oh my God, is this what happens to everyone, or, majority of people? And I knew physically I was actually not okay. It was just that the things that weren't okay, like hormones and lots of other things, weren't actually what they had tested for in the standard blood tests. And that was where, even as exhausted as I was, I just thought in that moment, this is a message I need to get out. Like when I get better and really improve and feel so much better within myself, I have to really spread this message that so much of our mental health is impacted by our physical fatigue in so many ways, and that it's the combination of exactly what we're talking about, or healing mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, because they're all inextricably linked. And if we've impacted one, it impacts the other, be it positive or negative. So that was, a huge turning point in, I guess, what I became even more passionate about in the work that I do. And I really wanted to make sure that women, particularly if they're going into perimenopause and menopause, because there's so many women that really hit late 30s, early 40s, hormones are starting to shift. And if women are burnt out in those, or experiencing burnout during that time, it exacerbates all of the other issues massively as well. So that's, a huge part of where I got to. And me now being close to 47, it's like, I'm kind of at that stage as well. And it's like, right, really taking care of ourselves in a new way.
Thank you for sharing. And geez, Louise, you've been through a lot, and that's one hell of a journey. What I wanted to ask, what happened then? Like when the doctor said antidepressants, I'm assuming you didn't take his advice and you took matters into your own hands. So what did you do?
Literally, no, it was like, thank you very much for our time here today, and I've got all I need. And I went to work on doing the key things that really supported my well-being. Obviously, our sleep is a huge part of trying to get that, but it's often a symptom too of burnout is the insomnia, because the anxiety is generally so high because our physical body is so compromised in that moment. So our, what I call the ego. The ego survival mind is like crazy. And I guess that was the biggest thing that really hit me as well. I had so many years relatively feeling pretty good. I'd done a ton of work on my self-love, my self-worth. I had myself feeling in a pretty good position, because back in 2008, like I had no clue on what self-love was, or what self-worth was, or how to actually even change those things, or increase those things for myself. But I'd done a lot of work in that area, and I could not believe how much my mental well-being was impacted, and emotional, of course, because I was grieving and there were so many other things kind of going on. But the fear and the anxiety was just unbelievable. And so I literally started applying the Byron Katie work, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, and the process that I'll share, because I think in those moments, and it felt like treading water for such a long time, where I'd kind of bring myself up a bit, and then, like the mind was just so active with like all the fears. It didn't take a whole lot to kind of, come back down again as well. So really being avid on what I was focusing on, what I was telling myself, because there were so many fears. For me, being self-employed, being a single mum, I still had my other daughter living at home. I was still the only sole provider. I had no sick leave. I had no, no contractors or nobody else to step in. Like I was literally it. So I needed to try and keep functioning as much as I could to run my business, at least from a financial perspective there as well. So that was where like literally applying all of the tools. So eating really well, keeping my blood sugar balanced, sleeping, like I was literally going to bed at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin B, like all of the pieces there as well was so important, like in looking at that physical well-being, the mental well-being, the emotional well-being. And I also use the emotional guidance scale as well, which is the Abraham Hicks. If anybody's heard of Esther and Jerry Hicks, that I find incredibly powerful as well, where we can be down at powerlessness or fear or anger or rage or any of those particular lower end emotions, and just gradually work yourself up the emotional guidance scale as well. So that was another tool that I used, because I could see, even being in as much fear and powerlessness as I felt at the time, because my body like literally felt like it had just given up on me. And I'd never experienced that level before. I'd been burnout before and I'd been exhausted and tired, but not to the point where I couldn't actually rally my energy at all, no matter how hard I tried mentally, and just try and motivate myself. There just was nothing left in the tank. And so that was like really scary, but at the same time, like even getting to anger or frustration was a good thing, because anger has a lot more energy in it, and so that was helpful, even though it's not an emotional.
Expressed as well.
Totally. And that was the other key too, I found, because my body had dropped so much into that freeze state as well, like on the nervous system level, that it felt like an elephant sitting on my chest. So every time I could kind of get myself to cry, because even that felt difficult, and I've always been able to cry pretty easily. But because my body was so numb and so shut down because of the lack of energy that I had left, even crying was tricky. But the more that I found I could kind of cry and express some of that, it got the energy moving again. And that definitely helped. I always noticed increased energy after having a cry. So that was really, really helpful. And definitely these days, like I find it one of the fastest ways of resetting the nervous system as well. If we've had a trigger or a shock or something's going on, having a big cry, or at least releasing anger, and then the tears come, it's one of the fastest ways to come back into parasympathetic or a regulated state again as well. So yeah, so that can be.
I think that's especially for Cancer moons.
Yes.
We cry.
Crying is a good thing. And, any primal guttural noises, like, really just allowing our body to process it in whatever way, shape or form that looks like or feels like for us, which can feel really tricky.
I do just want to, sorry to cut you off, I do just want to say something here. Like one of the 4 pillars in my model is conditions. I kind of summarized the main, I call it the big 5, and it's sleep, nutrition, movement, emotional support, and self-expression. And those are like the big 5 conditions that we need to thrive and to grow and to be, healthy and regulated, etc. And I find that people really don't prioritize sleep. They don't prioritize nutrition. They don't prioritize movement. Many don't have the emotional support that we need. And then self-expression is completely neglected. And self-expression meaning also self-expression, but like also creativity and play. And that is just like, we forgot about that. We don't even know how to have fun anymore. So many people just get into the like adulting, and we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this, and we have to be productive. The more productive we are, the more worthy we feel, and we have this conditioning really deeply ingrained in us. And so that's why I think that what you're sharing here is super important. And for, listeners that are very much on that like hamster wheel of like do, you know, very much masculine energy as well. It's like balance. We need some balance so that you don't burn out. And so yeah, so just wanted to yeah,
totally
I'm with you. Yes.
totally agree. You'll love this. These arrived in the mail today. It says, "I'm going to thrive today," and it's got
Damn
the
right.
tick list on the back. It's got sunlight and grounding, nourishing food, joyous movement, 2 to 3 liters of water, 8 hours sleep, gratitude, self-love, listen to my body, celebrate my wins, and plan my days. That is, I thought you'd like that.
I love it. And also, by the way, about the emotional scale, I am not familiar with it, and I will definitely look it up. And Abraham Hicks, you said, I feel like automatically, I feel though that just having, I think that when we have like a structure, we have like a guide, we have something to kind of follow or to support us, right? Even if it is, as you say, like an emotional scale, and you see where you are, just the idea of having something to be like, you are here, and now you want to try and get here, and then here, and it's like just that I feel is equipping and empowering a little bit. That's so key as well to what I do. So yeah, continue.
Yeah, I totally agree though, having some form of structure. And I think that's also the thing with burnout is because you feel so exhausted, like all your normal routine, everything that I was doing prior to, I suddenly couldn't. I'd lost complete capacity. So it's kind of like really stripping back the layers and going, what is the maybe 1, 2, or 3 things that I could do today that isn't going to cost me very much energy, but is going to reap a lot of energy back, because it's like, what's going to be the biggest bang for my buck, basically, with what I've got left for capacity. And for some people that might just be one healthy meal a day. Like in terms of like, I struggled to have a shower, I struggled to cook meals. Like,
I was gonna say have a shower just to like you know, I have a shower
totally,
music that like really pumps me up
and move the body in some way.
Morning yoga really gets me more energized. Like I feel lethargic when I get up and stiff and that in the morning, and my body literally craves the stretches.
I love that. I start mine generally with, either a walk or a workout in some shape or form. And my next step is like a cold plunge these days. But there's no way I could have done that in the midst of my burnout though, because I had not enough capacity on board.
I'm very lucky, and I moved to a little island in the Mediterranean. And so all through the winter, we did cold plunges in the sea 3 times a week.
Oh, amazing.
Like workout group, and we just jumped in, passing and blinded, going like, and then we jumped out, and it was amazing. You feel invincible, like straight up. You're like, wow, like just bring it on, life.
Totally. Yep. It is. It's such a powerful thing, and I do share that in my Thrive book as well. But I have said definitely, like, if you're really at the beginning stages of burnout, really listen to your body and what you actually really need as well. And I think that's a core piece of healing burnout, is because we've ignored, we haven't actually listened to our body for such a long time as well, in terms of some of the things that predispose going into burnout, or the characteristics are, you know, we're empathetic, we're givers and very attuned to everybody else's needs and what everybody else wants and needs us to be. And
But what about
a lot of that, that's exactly right. Like, but so much of that has come through our identity of how it was formed during our childhood, of who we needed to be within the family hierarchy or the family system as well. And so if we were always the caretaker or the overly responsible one for the rest of the family, often, they can be like the huge big pieces. And generally they are extra sensitive because they're attuned to everybody else's needs, very empathic, have a really big heart, want to make a difference in the world. But all of those things definitely can predispose people to experience burnout, because we've learned that's who I need to be in order to be loved, fit in, belong, be accepted. So
we're also conditioned. I feel that maybe some listeners would also be like, what do you mean listen to my body? Like, what does that mean? Listen to my body. And I feel like we're very much conditioned not to listen to our body. We're supposed to suppress. If something doesn't feel right or doesn't feel comfortable, we either ignore it, pop a pill, or go to the doctor and say, like, sort it out, get rid of this for me, you know? Like, we're really not taught to listen to the body, and that a symptom is trying to communicate to us. And there's this quote that I love, and I think I've shared it already, but I love this quote. It is, learn to hear your body whisper so it doesn't have to scream. Or something along those lines, right? And it is, it's so true that if you can really learn how to start listening to your body and like opening up this feedback loop of like, oh, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What's going on for me? And it's so, I have to say though, like little side note, it is really frustrating to me that we don't know what's going on inside of us half the time. And we don't also have access to the resources and the tools, like medical ones that's like, is it my hormones? Is it my this? Like I need to go and request testing. Who do I request testing from? My microbiome, my gut, the bacteria. Am I missing actual like bacteria, whatever you call them, strains or whatever, in my gut? Like we don't even have that much access. Like it's getting better, it's improving and it's getting better, but that's like part of the point of this podcast as well, is to help educate and raise awareness about these kinds of things, is that there's stuff going on inside of you, and if you're having a symptom, it's trying to tell you something. Don't shut it up.
Absolutely. And I always say, like I use the analogy around like you want to get it at the feather, like if it's a feather, a brick, or a truck. And unfortunately, I got the truck. I got two trucks actually, literally. Well, it felt like that metaphorically. But it was because I'd had years and years and years of feeling dissociated. And these are the coping mechanisms. So we've often, because of the childhood,
we think we can handle feathers. Oh, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right. Keep going, just push through, man up, just keep going, mind over matter.
Absolutely. Deny, suppress, push down, disassociate. And all of those are coping mechanisms, again, that we've learned through childhood because we needed to in order to be okay or survive that particular situation. But yeah, getting the messages. I remember one day I had burnt my finger and cut my finger, the same finger. And I went, right, need to go look that up. So there's a great book, there's The Secret Language of the Body by Ina Segal. It is absolutely magnificent. And I used to use in my kinesiology clinic, because this is a lot of what I used to do in my kinesiology clinic. So I was very adept at like listening to my body. And even if I got like a little twinge in my shoulder or just felt tight in my hips and things like that. But I think when it came to exhaustion, and often it's the biological needs that people are disassociated from as well. So things like thirst, hunger, exhaustion, even satiation, we're literally just, dissociated from. So if people really don't know where to start with learning how to listen to their body, it's starting to actually really kind of like check in. And am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Am I cold? Am I hot? Like starting with the biological needs. Do I need to go to the toilet? Like how many times, again, we're entrained that way through schools, through, you have to wait to go to the toilet until recess or lunch or whatever. You can't go when you actually need to.
I hold my pee in because I'm in the middle.
Totally. Just finish this. I'll just do this. I used to do this. I remember, like, even as a child doing that, like, I just hated having to, but all of that is, again, dissociating and not listening to our body and our own bodily needs. And it is, even that is a huge way of shifting, how we start to have a relationship with ourselves and how we treat our body and how we use that as a way of representing like self-love and self-care, because at the end of the day, that's exactly what it is. And I know too, sometimes if we can get into hyper focus and things like that, and then at the end of the day, it's like, God, I'm so exhausted, but we didn't actually realize it during the day too. So there can be lots of different things, but I think setting your phone, like having 3 reminders during the day where it's just morning, lunch, and afternoon. How do I feel? How do I actually really feel right now? And whenever I don't know how I feel emotionally, like if I know something's off or something is not quite right, I will normally journal on 3 different statements, which is I'm sad about, I'm angry about, and I'm scared about. Because they're generally like the 3 biggest negative emotions, like generalized, of course, but generally the, 3 negative emotions. And sometimes like when I start writing, there's not much that comes up on the first one. And then I get to like, I'm angry about, and my pen is going ballistic. It's like, oh my God. And it's like, wow, I didn't realize how upset I was about this particular thing. So it kind of like, it really is so supportive. Other times I'm like got tons coming out on all 3. But it does shift and change. And it really helps personally for me to identify if I'm not sure what's going on with me. Yeah.
I just want to say I had a client, and anger journaling was something that she found that helped reverse her pain. She was struggling with chronic pain like migraines and headaches, and it was all the suppression of the emotion, the anger,
tension. Yeah.
and constantly being contracted
gripping
and tight and grip it. Like So anger journaling and breath work. So it's just funny to say, like, anger, people really underestimate the importance of expressing your emotions. And anger is a really big
Totally.
one. Grief, obviously, and fear, as you said.
Mm,
So, like, I think you hit on
mm,
literally, yeah, it makes sense that those are three things to focus on. And there was something else, and journaling as well. Journaling, I have found also to be one of the most powerful tools for
mm,
healing, processing, expressing. Recently as well, someone said it's channeling as well. Like, it opens up
mm.
the access point to, like, to channeling. And the amount of times I've started writing something and then something else has come through and I'm like, holy shit, where did that come from? And it's so cool. But it is such a
Totally.
good tool. And people really, like, I remember when I started journaling and someone said to me, like, what are you, 12? Like, you got a diary. And people really judge it. We're so conditioned to, like, journaling, like, that's childish. No, it is actually very, very, very,
Mm.
very, very powerful. And it's a really, really good tool. So don't knock it. Give it a go.
Absolutely. It's one of the best ways of developing a relationship with ourselves again, particularly like if you're feeling, and one of the symptoms of codependency and, being a people pleaser or being in fawn, enmeshment, things like that, where we've blended with others or we're constantly putting other people's needs, is feeling lost and confused, not knowing who you actually are. And so daily journaling can be a beautiful process of really starting to get in touch with our core self again, and how do I really feel? And because when we're not being honest with ourselves, like, we're not having authentic relationships as well, and then other people feel duped, or we're passive aggressive because we said yes and we actually meant no. And there's so many different things that can kind of come out of that. But another journaling prompt that I found in a book that I read recently, I'm trying to remember the name of the book. It was so wonderful, and it's she mentioned to journal on things unsaid, so things I didn't say today that I wanted to.
Good one.
It's just like things unsaid, and it's like, my God. And she said, if you just literally journaled on that every single day, your life would be completely different, simply because it brings so much awareness of what we actually hold back, which actually does matter to us. So it's like when we didn't speak up for ourselves, or when we didn't say something, or when we felt upset about something but didn't express that to somebody, or set a healthy boundary, or all of those pieces. So again, it's another beautiful way of getting deeply in touch with our own personal truth. And Teal Swan also has a couple of other journaling prompts around, I tell others that, but how I really feel is. And
Is
it's
it
like
fun?
Teal Swan,
Feels
yeah,
like
she
fun.
has
Yeah.
some yeah, she's got some really good prompts around
What
that as
is it?
well.
I
But
tell.
I tell others that dot
Uh-huh.
dot dot, but how I really feel is, it's something similar to that. They're not the exact words, but it's something very similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, yeah, so I tell others I'm going fine, but I actually really feel completely hollow and lost inside, or whatever, obviously, it is that we're feeling at the time. So yeah, it can be
People are
some
taking notes. This is gold. Go on.
there's so many, yeah, there's so many different prompts that we can use, like in terms of shifting our energy. And that's what I use on a daily basis as well. It's the check-in. How do I feel? How do I want to feel? And what do I need from myself to be able to feel that way today? And then set my intentions. Yeah.
But you know what? It makes total sense as well, because if you constantly putting others first and you're everything is kind of external, right? So it's other
Mm,
people, and your feedback is from other people, and then how to, and your worth is based on their perception of you, and you think about what they think of you. So then when you journal, you're like putting yourself out as well. So it's like, now it's like another person, but that person is you. And that gets to also be a priority and be in your make it on your list, and it kind of like externalizes that inner bit of you. And so I think
mm,
it just makes sense that that would be a very, very effective way of
mm,
getting to know yourself, and even just reconnecting, but rehabilitating, like, this relationship with yourself, right? Like,
mm.
returning to yourself, and having that conversation included in your other conversations.
Absolutely. And it takes, I think, like tremendous courage sometimes to start to share some of those things as well, because if we haven't got a strong foundation of self-love, which I certainly didn't, certainly back in 2008. And again, like, I had completely lost myself for 14 years in a very unhealthy relationship. And I just felt like a shell of myself. And I literally gave myself 12 months to rediscover me. And I often say that to people that come to me and say, I feel lost. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. It's like, hey, you don't have to figure this all out right now either. Take time to discover who you are, try different things and see if it lights you up, or you're like, yeah, no, I won't be doing that again. So it's, like, I think life does get to be this joyous experimentation as well, or at least, fun or curious experimentation. I'm third line or 3-5 in human design for
I'm a
anybody that's
3-6.
in here. So yeah, so
Both
experimentation is a huge
experimenters.
thing. I think that's really important, but to give ourselves the grace and the space. And if it takes 2 years or 5 years, like, it doesn't matter. I think we're constantly learning who we are and what's important to us in life through both our life experiences and experience the contrast of what it is that we don't want, so we know more clearly. But we just have to remember to focus on what it is that we do want instead, to shift that direction.
I think about the
the
timepiece
key
as
piece.
well. Like, even if the longer it takes, the sooner you're going to want to get started, right? It's like, this is a life
Totally.
process, so get on it. Don't put it.
Absolutely. I totally agree on so many levels. And yeah, so really getting to know ourselves through either journaling or just those daily check-ins can be such a helpful process as well, for sure.
Beautiful. Okay. Awesome. Now, diving into the Byron Katie process.
Absolutely. So Byron Katie process, I really, honestly, if you feel resistant to doing this, I hear you wholeheartedly.
But that means you
Simply
should do
because
it more.
exactly. And I'm just sharing that I actually resisted this process for 6 months because my ego did not want to do it at all. It's a very humbling process, but at the same time, it is just such a powerful way of starting to let go of the layers and layers of belief systems that we've had that have caused us pain over the years. And the way that it works, I'll explain the way that it works, and then I'll actually go through, use an example, like of how I would go through the Byron Katie process for things. Because the thing with our beliefs is when we believe them to be true, they form our emotions, or they contribute to how we're actually feeling about ourselves, which drive our actions, which then also drive the results that we get or the results that we don't get, which then further reinforce the belief. So the belief cycle is such a huge loop. And if it's not serving us, if it's disempowering us in some way or making us feel awful, we absolutely want to know how to shift and change those thoughts that cause pain and suffering. And particularly the more we're in burnout, we'll often experience, if people have dropped into a freeze state, that is heavily associated with shame. Certainly in my experience, everybody that I've spoken to, the patterns that I've seen is the freeze state can be triggered from feeling shame initially, or being triggered into a state of shame. But also, if we've experienced the freeze state because we're so low in energy and the body's dropped into that as a way of trying to conserve energy, there can be huge amounts of shame experienced biologically. The experience is the same in the body, the shame and the freeze state, in what I've kind of experimented with over the years. So when we're in that shame state, often there's the feeling like I'm not enough, or I'm not doing enough, or I should have done enough. Like, it's some flavor of not enoughness that shows up. So the way that the Byron Katie works is every single one of our beliefs or thoughts were once pro-survival. They were trying to help us be more perfect or be good enough so finally we could be loved. Even the worst and the most vicious parts of our inner critic, which can feel hard. I know when I first heard this, I'm like, what? My inner critic is actually my friend, or trying to help me. But when I really sat with it, I went, oh my God, it actually is like, it's beating me up to try and have me be a particular way so I can be more accepted, so I can get the love, the validation in order to help me survive, because that's what I needed as a young child. So the more that we can understand that all of our thoughts were once pro-survival, they may not be supporting or helping us now, but they were once pro-survival. So when the mind realizes, oh my goodness, this thought is actually hurting me so badly right now. It's causing me all of this pain. It's causing me all of this unresourceful behavior, perhaps, because obviously our thoughts can drive our behavior. And without the thought, well, I feel calm and I feel okay. So the mind, the subconscious mind starts to learn with the thought, now it's causing me pain. It's not actually pro-survival anymore. And so the mind becomes a lot more willing, or the subconscious mind becomes a lot more willing to let go of a layer of that thought. All of our thoughts, we've thought, many times probably in our lifetime. They say we have, 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day. I have no idea who counted that, how they come up with that. But often, they're repetitive. And I know for me, I had a very persistent thought, which was I was fat and ugly and no one would love me. And that was literally from 13 to 32. I had that my entire life. I'm literally the same size as I am today, like pretty much within 1 or 2 kilos is what I was when I was 16. But
You're beautiful.
thank you. However, just literally believe that thought like my absolute truth. I just honestly thought it was true. And I would look in the mirror every single day. I would feel that. I would say it. I would think it. I would believe it every single day. And every single day it would massively impact my self-worth. And I literally had to question this thought for 6 months. This is not a magic bullet. It's not a quick fix process or anything else. It will immediately help you feel better in the moment, but it definitely can take time, particularly with those persistent beliefs that we've had for a long time, to actually let go of those patterns. I was more than happy to do that for 6 months for a lifetime of freedom. That's been well and truly over 14 years now that I have not had that belief or thought anymore. It's worth, for the rest of my life, I don't have that thought for just showing up and doing the work. And when I first got this work or got the process, I literally did 2 hours a day for 8 weeks straight. So I did over 100 hours initially because I had a lot of negativity. I've had all of these beliefs and thoughts about myself, about others, about the world, about so many different things, about others not loving and appreciating me, and they should do that, and all of these different pieces as well. So it was very, very helpful in diving into it. So the process is, number one, like just write down the belief or thought. I'm going to use I'm not enough as an example because I think as humans, it is one of our biggest fears, as Tony Robbins talks about. And we all feel that way at times, or we can all feel that way at times. And it comes in different flavors. For me, it was not being skinny enough, or thin enough, or beautiful enough. But we all have different flavors based upon, our childhood experiences and our life experiences as well. And so write down the thought. The next step is ask ourselves, is it true? And initially the mind will be like, yeah, well, of course it's true, because we've believed it our entire life. But even just like sitting with that and going, well, is it true? The second question is, can I absolutely know it's true? And I love what Byron Katie says about this, because it's like, really, like, if I had to answer yes for the rest of my life, could I absolutely answer yes for the rest of my life? And if not, it's actually a no.
Okay, so that's the second question or the third question?
Second question. Yeah.
The second question,
So
is it true?
So, sorry, the first question is it true? The second question is, can I absolutely know it's true? Because the mind really gets stuck sometimes with these things.
So
The
I
third
ask,
question.
can it hold up in a court of law is the way I
I love that. That's another great way. Yeah. So second question, can I absolutely know it's true? Third question is, how do I feel? And these, I've slightly modified the questions. You can go to Byron Katie's website, which is just thework.com. And she's got downloads there for your own personal beliefs and also for beliefs about others, which is the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. That's also super powerful as well to do. That was life-changing in so many ways, and again, very humbling. So the third question that I ask is, how do I feel when I believe the thought? And how I feel when I believe the thought I'm not enough in that moment, if I'm experiencing that, it's like I feel devastated. I feel sad. I feel like I'm not enough. I feel ashamed. I feel sad. Sometimes the same words can come back up again. I feel exhausted. I feel tired. I feel, why bother? I feel apathetic. I feel powerless. I feel like I just want to hide from others. So there's lots of different things that can come up. And I just literally ask myself that same question over and over, because again, remember that the mind, the subconscious mind, lets go of whatever it realizes it is no longer helping it. So it's just like picking up a coal out of a hot fire. We will drop the coal in the moment we recognize it's burning us. And that's how our mind works as well. So if you only kind of go surface level with this and it's just like, oh yeah, I feel like shit, like when I think the thought, you're really not going to get much of a shift. It's actually being really honest with yourself in how much that thought is actually really impacting you, and being willing to go into the depth of the feeling of it. And that can be hard at times too, particularly if we've not really sat with our feelings or our emotions a lot as well. It can be a little bit confronting, but going into the feelings accesses the subconscious mind. Otherwise, we're just where it's like banging on the outside of a computer trying to change the software program. The next one is, who do I become and what do I do when I believe the thought? I love this question because it brings so much self-awareness. And this was a huge one for me, particularly when I was working on my emotional eating. And I realized that the thought that I was having, like I was eating too much or I was a big fat pig or whatever thought that I was having at the time that was challenging, who do I become and what do I do when I believe the thought? And it was just like, oh my God, I want to eat more. Like it was crazy how interlinked it was with the actual thought. Even though it was the very thing that I didn't want to be doing, there was so much shame and there was so much, like, it was just like, yeah, just trying to get rid of the thought by numbing out or doing something in some way, shape, or form. So with the thought, like, I'm not enough, who do I become and what do I do? I shrink, I hide, I don't want to be seen, I make myself invisible, I don't want to be on social media. Like, there's so many different things that come up that can impact our life. Or I don't want to connect with others, I shut down, I withdraw, I hide, I like so many different things that can come up from that. So it can also bring greater awareness because often these patterns are playing out. We might even be having the thought, but not realize we're actually having the thought. This is what I love about this process is when I realize I'm hiding or, oh, I don't want to show up on social media. Hang on, what's going on there? I'm feeling like I'm not enough. So the two create greater awareness, which is really good. And then I ask myself, how do I feel or how would I feel if I didn't believe the thought? Now, sometimes that can be really tricky. If we've had that thought for a very long time and we've absolutely believed it to be true, it can be really, really tricky in that moment to actually feel what it would be like. So you can even kind of bypass the mind a little, by asking yourself, how might somebody else feel if they didn't have that thought? Because it's you still thinking the thought or still thinking how somebody else would feel. So it's still your own stuff, but it is a way that we can start to work with that and start to get an idea of how that might actually feel. But in the moment, you can really feel what it would be like to not have that belief, even for just a second. And you go, my God, I would feel free, or I would feel calmer, or I would feel enough. It's like it lands us so completely back in our heart. And for me personally, like, I get a very visceral shift. When I take my clients through it, they get a very visceral shift as well. And often it can be, the difference between being either in the fawn, the freeze, or the flight response, and then just coming back to our heart and back to regulation and just going, and often you hear that big breath of just like, I just feel calmer or I feel better within myself. And then who do I become and what do I do without the thought? Well, I want to reach out to friends, or I want to tell my loved ones how much I love them or care about them, or I just feel like I'm enough and I want to go for a walk. And then we've got, like, now our authentic self actually starting to express itself, which is really beautiful from that place. So we know that anything that's kind of coming through from that is more of our authentic self, which is a really beautiful thing. Three questions that you can kind of ask yourself, or the one question that you can ask yourself 3 times, just to kind of break it up a little bit more if the mind is really struggling with like what the opposite of that would feel like, or if I didn't have the thought, is 3 reasons why it's actually not true, or why this opposite statement. So why I am enough, 3 reasons why I am enough. And really, again, like, the more you can take that into your heart, might be like, you know what? Because we are all born inherently worthy. Now, that might just feel like words, but if you can really take that message into your heart and have it really land emotionally, again, that really starts to break up, like, the ego mind's concept around it, because it can be pretty contracted at times too if we're really in that thought. So it's a beautiful process. I really recommend listening to, if this has resonated for any of your listeners, even listening to some of Byron Katie's work is really powerful, and you really get a sense of how to actually utilize the work at a deeper level. She's got like many, many books, but one of my favorite is I Need Your Love. Is that true? And that was honestly what set me free, particularly from needing other people's approval, needing other people's love, which had kept me stuck in codependence and had kept me stuck in really awful situations at times, and where I was completely abandoning myself essentially, because I felt like I could not let anyone down. I couldn't displease them. I couldn't upset them. And because I didn't have my own strong foundation of love, I was terrified to not have their love. So it was really, really powerful.
It's the most notes I've ever taken on an episode.
I love that,
Seriously.
Emily.
Okay. Everybody, I hope you took notes. If not, rewind and go take notes, because this is so freaking good. I can tell already how good it is and how powerful it is. Because I love always finding tools that have gotten someone to the same place that let's say, gotten to the same place, but it's just a different way of getting there, right? And it could be a quicker way or a more effective way, or like, I'm all about efficiency.
Me too.
I like it if it's going to get me there quicker and easier. Like, I am all in, And so this, I can every single question you have shared, I just see how, yes, yes, write it down. This is literally like free tools that very, very powerful. I can really see there is so much I wanted to say. Okay, I didn't want to stop because I keep cutting up and I didn't want to. Okay, so there's one thing that you said about the pro survival. I've never heard of that term before, but it is so important. Literally, it was something I really wanted to share on this podcast too, and I think I have in some episodes, but I drill it into all of my clients and my listeners. It's the idea that we are desired to survive. We're designed to survive. We're wired to survive. Like, it is built into us to survive. That is it. And so everything, our thoughts, our beliefs, our behaviors, it is all for our survival, to keep us safe and to protect us, even if that is very counterintuitive and contradictory. And it feels like, how is smoking helping me stay safe? It's like, it's killing me. Or how is binge drinking? Or how is falling into bed with random strange, like, literally the kind of things that we really struggle with and we hate ourselves for, and we judge ourselves for, like, why do I keep fucking eating so much, and like all these things. It is to keep us safe. It is to protect us. It is a survival mechanism. At some point it served us. It was the best we could do with whatever we had available, and it helps us comfort ourselves, self-soothe. What addiction is self-soothing, by the way. Dr. Gabor Mate talks about that, right?
100%.
But yes, so it's like, it is so important. And I love that you, that's where you started with it. Like, the idea, it's such a game changer. Me just understanding that my freeze and fawn responses in my extreme trauma that I went through, that I had shamed myself for and judged myself for years and years and years and years and years, like total PTSD mindfuck. Why did I do that? Why didn't I fight harder? Why didn't I run it? Like, whatever. Because it was my system's best way of surviving. That's what my system was like. You will survive this if you do that. That is what you've been conditioned to do, or that you've learned to do. Like, this is the response you're going to do. And just understanding that in and of itself was a game changer. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that piece. It is so important. And thank you for bringing that up. And I absolutely love these prompts and all the book recommendations. And seriously, this is awesome. I'm going to be reading a lot of books this summer.
Audible triple times.
This is beautiful, beautiful stuff. Also, there's something interesting, because there's a tool that I like to use called Whoop. You can Google it, whoopmylife.org, I think. And they scientifically proven, she's a professor, she did a lot of studies on this, is that first you get clear on what you want, and then you imagine the outcome, having you've achieved it, meaning who do I become, who am I without that thought, kind of thing. And then the obstacles, meaning what is getting in your way of achieving that, and then planning to overcome those obstacles so you can achieve it. And it's like a plan to create new habits, healthier habits, or stop the bad habits, etc. But she said it was very important, the order. So first, she said that with the studies, first you have to imagine the outcome, and that kind of gets you motivated on it. And then you think about but it was apparently is really important. And here I see that it still works, yet it is like, you're focusing first on the obstacle bits and then you're going to the outcome bit. And so I wonder whether that is true, whether it matters about the order. Like, it's just something that came up as you said. I was like, okay, that, and that's there. Interesting. But if it works, it works, so I guess the order isn't that important. But this is beautiful. And yes, there's so many different tools that I haven't used that like include these same kind of steps, but I really like this. It's very efficient. I may use it.
It's amazing, and particularly like where like the next level of value really came in for me personally was when I started doing the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, which is doing so we have like obviously our own beliefs, but then we have our beliefs about other people or expectations about other people's. For example, at one point in my life, it was like my kids should love me and appreciate me. Like that was my belief. And if they were having a teenage moment, that was my belief. I was projecting upon them in that moment. And I was so triggered and, like, because like I didn't have that level of appreciation and self-love for me in that moment. So going and doing the Byron Katie work was one of the best ways that I could really increase the love, the compassion in my relationships in such a valuable way and utilize really the external world as a mirror. And I know we had chatted about that earlier, but this was literally how I started to see my God, like this is literally it. So when how do I feel, who do I become when I believe it's thought they should love me and appreciate me, I'm like a ranting lunatic, like just all these different things that would come up. I'm angry, I'm annoyed, frustrated, blah blah blah. And then like I do the turnarounds, and Byron Katie suggests to do there's 4 different ways that you can do the turnarounds so they shouldn't love and appreciate me, which most people would be like, what? No. But it's really interesting to sit with each of the turnarounds, and sometimes one of them may not resonate as much, but then I should love and appreciate them. Oh my God, they're my kids, of course. And it was like in that moment when I believed they should be appreciating and loving me, I was and I was angry about that. There was no way I was being appreciative or loving towards them. And then it was like I should love and appreciate me, and it was like, oh my God, yeah, that's it right there. So there was just so much gold.
So I reached the same outcome, but with Dr. Nicola Perez's trigger work.
Amazing.
She calls it ego work. So it's ego work, she calls it. And it's like the ego is our protector, it's our bodyguard, and so it's trying to keep us from the triggers. And so when we get triggered, we're going to be like, bing, alarm goes off, and then the ego steps in, and we get angry, we project, we etc., etc. And so the trigger and just doing the trigger work on myself, I was then able to see in others like, oh, they're just getting triggered, like that's all it is, and then you
bring so much compassion.
It's like, dude, I'm not going to feed into this projection. Like it completely changed my relationships, like with my father, my mother, my husband, like everything. I was just like, just looking at the world differently, like looking at people, looking at ourselves. It's completely demystified behavior, but it's just like, okay, I see what's happening now. It's all cool. It's nothing to do with me.
Literally.
That person's like attacking me right now. It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
So
it really so much freedom and instant regulation and instant, just coming back to our heart and living from our heart, as opposed to what I call, the ego survival mind, like running us like crazy.
I love it. That is what this is all about, like finding what works for you, So you see, it could be Dr. Nicola Perez's ego work. It could be quite.
And I love her work as well. Yeah.
So good. So good.
So powerful. My pleasure.
Amazing. You're amazing, Sal. I love you.
Thank you so much, Emily.
Wisdom and your time with us today. Really, really appreciate it. Big thank you to everyone listening in. I hope you find our conversation as inspiring and informative and enlightening as I did. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps me reach more listeners and hopefully make a bigger impact. I'd also love to hear from you. I'm sure Sal would as well. Her links are wherever it is on this, wherever you're listening. What is your biggest takeaway from today? That is something that I'd really like to hear. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay tuned for more episodes coming your way. Sal, thank you. Thank you again. Lots of love, everyone. Bye.